Lady Alara stood at the balcony of her family's castle, watching the mist curl over the rolling hills of the kingdom. The morning sun struggled to pierce the silver haze, casting soft light over the distant forest. It was a quiet moment, but her heart was restless. In a few days, she was to be married not for love, but for duty. Her hand had been promised to Lord Malric, a nobleman whose wealth and influence could strengthen her family's position in the court. Ilara's thoughts drifted as she traced the carvings on the stone railing. Her fingers lingered over the intricate swirls of dragons and roses, symbols of her family's long history. Yet, none of it mattered now. She felt trapped. Her life had been planned before she could even speak a word. Every day had been a step toward this wedding, toward a life she had not chosen. The castle buzzed with activity. Servants scurried through the halls, carrying silk and gold, preparing the grand hall for the pre-wedding ceremony. Guests would arrive from far and wide, their eyes filled with curiosity, envy, and expectation. Alara knew that she must smile, must appear joyful, but her heart refused to follow. Rumors of a curse floated through the kingdom like a hidden current. Every century, it was said, a soul destined for another would be claimed before vows were spoken. Some dismissed it as superstition, others whispered it as truth. Her grandmother had once told her, in a hushed tone by the fire, that some forces were older than kings, older than laws. That destiny could not be ignored, and sometimes it arrived in ways no one could anticipate. Alara shook her head, trying to push the thoughts away. She had no time for such tales. Duty awaited, and soon she would be bound to Lord Malric. Yet, even as she tried to steel herself, a strange feeling stirred in her chest, a flutter, a pull, a whisper that she could not name. That evening, the castle gardens were lit by lanterns that swayed gently in the breeze. Guests wandered along the cobblestone paths, their laughter mingling with the soft rustle of leaves. Ilara moved through the crowd, her dress a cascade of blue silk, her head held high despite the weight in her heart. It was there, by the fountain under the silvered moonlight, that she saw him. The stranger appeared as if from the shadows themselves. He was tall, with dark hair that brushed his shoulders, and eyes like storm clouds, both fierce and mysterious. Every step he took seemed to command attention, though no one in the garden noticed him, only Ilara. He stopped a few paces away, and for a moment, neither spoke. It was as if the world had narrowed to the space between them. A strange warmth pulsed through her veins, a tether pulling her toward him, though she did not understand why. "I am Kale," he said at last, his voice deep and steady. "I have come for you, Lady Ilara." Ilara's breath caught. You cannot." Her voice was trembling, though she did not know why. "I can," he replied. There was a firmness in his gaze, an authority that felt both terrifying and comforting. "By law of the old world, by the threads of destiny itself, you are mine. I claim you." Before the wedding, the words hung in the air like a spell. Around them, the party continued, oblivious, but Ilara felt the pull of something ancient and undeniable. Her heart thumped violently against her chest, her mind caught between fear and an unfamiliar longing. "You are insane," she whispered, trying to step back. But her feet felt rooted to the cobblestones, as if the ground itself obeyed the pull between them. "I am not insane," Kale said. "I am bound by forces older than kingdoms. You are my true mate, and the moment has come to claim you. You may resist, but it will only draw us closer." Ilara's thoughts spun. The tales of the curse, the warnings whispered by her grandmother, the strange pull she had felt for days, all of it collided at once. Was this magic, fate, or madness? Yet, as she looked into his stormy eyes, she felt something she could not explain. It was as if a part of her had been waiting, even before she knew it. Something deep inside recognized him, recognized the bond he spoke of. Before she could respond, a rustle in the bushes startled them both. A shadow moved quickly. A figure cloaked in black, almost unseen. Cale's hand moved instinctively, drawing a curved blade that shimmered with faint blue light. The shadow paused, and then vanished into the trees. "Ilara," Kyle said softly, lowering his weapon. "There are those who would see this bond broken. You must be ready. But do not fear. It is only the world that opposes us. I will not let harm touch you." Ilara's breath was shallow. Her heart was pounding so loudly she feared it might betray her secret thoughts. The truth was, she did not fear him, not entirely. There was a pull, a connection, that both frightened and thrilled her. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of jasmine and the distant smoke of torches. Lanterns flickered like fireflies, but the world around her seemed muted, as if all colors had dimmed except the storm in Cale's eyes. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because it is time," he replied simply. "And because you are the one I have been waiting for. Just as you have been waiting for me, even if you do not yet know it." Ilara closed her eyes, trying to calm the storm inside her. But it was no use. She felt the invisible threads tighten, pulling her toward him, drawing her into a destiny she had never imagined. The distant sound of music from the party seemed unreal now, as if it belonged to another world. In this garden, under the moonlight, there was only them, the stranger, who claimed her by right of fate, and the young noblewoman caught between duty and a force older than the crown. "I cannot," she said again, shaking her head, though her voice wavered. "You do not yet see," Cale said gently. "But soon, you will. Fate cannot be denied. And though you fear it, your heart knows the truth." A sudden gust of wind swept through the garden, scattering petals and lantern light. Ilara's hair whipped around her face. And in that instant, she felt a strange vision. A castle aflame, a shadowed figure fighting alone, and a pair of eyes that belonged only to Cale. The vision vanished as quickly as it came, leaving only the echo of her racing heartbeat. "Ilara," a voice called from the hall. It was her mother, reminding her of her duty, of the wedding that approached in mere days. The normal world tugged at her, demanding obedience. But she could not shake the sensation of being pulled between two lives, one of duty, one of destiny. Cale's hand hovered near hers, not touching, yet the heat between them was undeniable. "You will have to choose," he said quietly. "And soon. The world expects one thing, but fate will not wait." Ilara swallowed hard, her lips dry. She wanted to resist, to obey her family, to step back into the life that had been planned for her. Yet every instinct, every whisper in her soul, told her that the man before her was no ordinary stranger. He was part of a story written long before her birth, a force she could not fight. As the lanterns swayed in the night, Ilara's mind raced. What did it mean to be claimed? To have destiny pull her so forcibly towards someone she barely knew? And yet, why did her heart feel as if it had known him forever? Before she could answer, Kael stepped closer, his presence both commanding and protective. The invisible tether between them tightened, and Ilara felt a strange mixture of fear and longing. She realized, with a shiver, that the bond had begun. It was no longer a question of whether she believed in it, it had chosen her. And then, the night was shattered by a sudden, sharp cry from the castle. "Lady Ilara, there is a disturbance at the gates." Kael's eyes darkened. "They are coming," he murmured, his voice tense. "Those who fear our bond. You must come with me." Ilara's heart pounded. Everything she had known, the wedding, the life of duty, was slipping away. She looked at Kael, and for the first time, truly saw him. Not as a stranger, not as an intruder, but as the force that had been reaching for her across time. I don't know," If I can, she whispered, her voice trembling. You can, Cale said firmly, taking her hand at last. Because your heart knows the truth, and together, we will face whatever comes. The wind howled through the garden, carrying with it the scent of rain and the distant roar of the castle gates. Lanterns flickered violently, and the mist seemed to thicken around them. Ilara's chest tightened as the weight of choice pressed upon her. She could no longer remain in the life that awaited her. With a courage she had not known she possessed, she nodded. I will go with you. Cale's stormy eyes softened, a faint smile brushing his lips. Then let destiny begin. And in that moment, as the first drops of rain began to fall, the castle bells tolled, not for a wedding, but for the beginning of a bond older than kings, older than crowns, a bond that would not be denied, and a story that had only just begun. The forest was alive with shadows, and the rain had turned the dirt paths into slick trails of mud. Lady Ilara's dress, once pristine, clung to her legs as she followed Cale through the thick trees. Her heart pounded not from fear alone, but from the strange pull that tied her to him, a force older than any law or decree. Cale moved with a certainty that was almost unnerving. Every step seemed preordained, guided by instincts that Ilara could not comprehend. The closer she walked beside him, the more aware she became of the tether she could feel in her chest. Warm, insistent, demanding. You must understand, Cale said, his voice low and firm. The bond between us is not mere chance. It has existed since before your birth. The moment I saw you, destiny called me. Ilara swallowed hard. But the wedding my family, they will never understand. Cale's eyes softened, but the storm within them remained. The world may resist, but the heart never lies. Your duty may bind you, but it cannot control what your soul seeks. I do not claim you out of desire alone, Ilara. I claim you because it is the truth written in the threads of fate. She wanted to argue, to fight against the pull, but each word he spoke seemed to unravel her own defenses. The forest around them whispered, the leaves shimmering as if the world itself acknowledged their bond. Ilara, Cale continued, there are those who will try to tear us apart, not out of hatred, but out of fear. Fear of what cannot be understood. You must be prepared. Ilara's breath caught. Prepared for what? The trials, Cale said simply. The dangers that follow true mates. And the magic that seeks to separate them. For a moment, the forest seemed to close in around her. She had read tales of love, cursed by ancient spells, of warriors and nobles ensnared by forces beyond their control. Yet, this was different. She could feel the bond, fierce and undeniable, tugging at her heart. It frightened her. It thrilled her. They walked in silence for a time, broken only by the soft splash of rain through leaves and the distant call of a night bird. Ilara noticed the way Cale's eyes constantly scanned their surroundings, alert to threats she could not see. There was a depth to him, a pain he carried, yet he moved forward with a determination that made her feel both safe and vulnerable at once. Finally, they reached a clearing by a small, moonlit lake. The water mirrored the clouds above, disturbed only by the falling rain. Cale stopped, turning to face her. Ilara, he said, this is where I will teach you what you must know. The bond we share is not just of the heart. It is of power. It will grow stronger with time, but it must be nurtured. You must trust me. Ilara hesitated, looking into his eyes. There was a strength there she had never seen in anyone else. And yet, there was also a shadow, a sorrow that made her heart ache. I don't know if I can, she whispered. You can, Cale replied gently. Because your heart already knows. It is the fear that clouds your mind, not the truth of what we are. The first lesson began with silence. Kale guided her to the edge of the lake and instructed her to close her eyes, to listen not to the world, but to the rhythm of her own heartbeat. Slowly, she felt the pulse of the bond, the warmth, the energy that connected her to him across time and space. "Do you feel it?" he asked. Elara nodded, though her voice caught in her throat. "Good," Kale said, a faint smile touching his lips. "It will guide you. When danger comes, it will lead you to safety. When doubt rises, it will remind you of what is real." She opened her eyes to find him watching her with a mixture of pride and caution. There was so much about him she did not understand. Yet every glance, every movement, spoke of a history she could not yet grasp. Hours passed as he taught her, showing her how to sense the presence of unseen forces, how to recognize enchantments, and how to trust the bond that connected them. Ilara's initial fear slowly transformed into awe. She realized that Kale's strength was not just physical, it was something deeper, something ancient and unyielding. As the night deepened, the forest seemed to hold its breath. A rustling behind them made Ilara turn sharply. Shadows moved in the distance, and a chill ran down her spine. "Stay close," Kale warned, his hand brushing against hers, not touching, yet sending a jolt through her. "They are watching. Those who would see us separated." Before she could ask, a figure emerged from the trees. Cloaked in black, the stranger moved with a grace that suggested both skill and danger. Kyle stepped in front of her, eyes narrowing. "You should not be here," Kale said. The figure laughed softly, a sound that made the hairs on Ilara's neck rise. "Fate is not so easily claimed," the stranger said. "Your bond is fragile, and it can be broken." Ilara's chest tightened. She could feel the tug of magic in the air, an invisible force trying to pull the bond apart. She reached for Kale instinctively, and the tether responded, bright and unyielding. "Do not fear," Kale said, his voice a steady anchor in the storm. "Together, we are stronger than they know." The figure hesitated, then vanished into the shadows, leaving only a lingering sense of danger. Ilara shivered, realizing that their journey had only begun. For the first time, she saw Kale not just as a stranger or a warrior, but as someone tied to her very soul. She wanted to run, to hide, but a deeper part of her, the part that recognized destiny, kept her rooted. "Why me?" she asked softly, breaking the silence. Kale's eyes softened. "Because no one else could be. You and I were meant for this, Ilara. Your life was guided to this moment, just as mine was. We cannot fight what is true." Indy one. Ilara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words and the bond that wrapped around her heart. She thought of her family, her future, the wedding that awaited her. Everything seemed distant now, irrelevant compared to the pull she could not deny. I want to understand," she whispered. "You will," Kale replied. "But it will take time, courage, and trust. The path ahead is not easy. There will be trials, dangers, and choices that will test you beyond what you imagine. But you will not face them alone." The moon broke through the clouds, casting silver light over the lake. The rain had stopped, leaving droplets glittering like diamonds on the leaves. Ilara felt a strange calm, a quiet resolve settling over her. She did not yet know what lay ahead, but she knew she could face it with him. As they sat by the water, Kale's hand finally brushed against hers. The touch was brief, but it carried a warmth that seemed to seep into her very soul. Ilara felt the bond pulse stronger than ever, a reminder that their connection was more than mere chance. The forest around them seemed to settle, yet the lingering threat remained. Ilara realized that the world would not allow this bond to flourish easily. Forces beyond her understanding were already moving, and she would need to grow stronger, braver, and wiser to protect what had been claimed. "Tomorrow, I will show you more," Kale said, standing. But tonight, remember this. Your heart knows the truth. Fear is only the shadow of the unknown. Trust in the bond, and nothing can break it. Ilara nodded, her fingers lingering where his hand had touched hers. She felt a strange mixture of fear, longing, and hope. For the first time, she began to see a future not dictated by duty, but by destiny. And then, a distant howl echoed through the forest, a warning, or perhaps a promise of the trials to come. Ilara's chest tightened, but she did not move. She was ready to face whatever came, as long as Kale was by her side. The forest held its breath around them, silent except for the gentle lapping of the lake. Somewhere in the shadows, eyes watched. Forces were gathering. But in that moment, nothing mattered except the bond that had begun, fierce and unyielding, between Lady Ilara and her true mate. The night stretched on, and as the first light of dawn crept through the trees, Ilara realized something she could not ignore. Her life had changed forever. The wedding, the duties, the expectations, they were no longer her only path. A new journey had begun, one of danger, magic, and a love that was older than the world itself. The forest was darker than ever, shadows stretching between twisted trees as though the very woods were alive, watching their every move. Lady Ilara clutched Kale's arm, her fingers trembling, not from cold, but from the awareness that every step forward was a step into danger. The tether between them pulsed like a heartbeat, invisible yet undeniable. A force binding them closer with every moment. "Kale," she whispered, "how much farther? How will we know when it's safe?" Kale's eyes, stormy and intense, scanned the surroundings. "Safe is a word the world invents," he said. "Out here, you must trust the bond. It will guide us, and it will protect us. But danger is never far. Those who wish to separate us are clever. We must be cleverer." Ilara nodded, swallowing the rising fear. Since leaving the castle, she had witnessed things she could barely explain. Strange lights darting between the trees, whispers that seemed to echo her own thoughts, and fleeting shadows that vanished before she could reach them. And yet, through it all, Kale had been her anchor. His presence calmed the storm inside her, even as the world pressed in with peril. They moved in silence for a while, following the pull of the bond. It led them toward the heart of the forest, to a place Kale called the Hollow of Whispers, a sacred site where those bound by destiny could commune with the magic of the land. The hollow was a wide clearing, surrounded by ancient stones, etched with runes that glowed faintly in the moonlight. The air smelled of rain and earth, and the wind carried a soft hum that seemed to speak directly to Ilara's heart. "This is where you will learn more," Kale said, releasing her hand for the first time in hours. "The hollow strengthens the bond, but it also tests it. You must face your fears here, Ilara. Only then can you truly understand what it means to be claimed." Ilara stepped forward hesitantly, her eyes wide as she traced the glowing runes. A chill ran through her body, not from the cold, but from the sense of being watched by something older and wiser than herself. "Tests?" she asked softly. "Yes," Kale replied. "The bond is strong, but it is not unbreakable. Your own doubts, fears, and unresolved desires can weaken it. Here, you will confront them." The air shimmered, and suddenly, Ilara found herself standing alone. Kale's voice echoed in the distance, but his form was gone. She turned, panic rising in her chest, but the hollow seemed endless, filled with shifting shadows and whispers that sounded like her own thoughts. "Face them," a voice said, soft and teasing. "Face what you truly fear." Her mind raced. She thought of the wedding she was meant to attend, of her family's expectations, of Lord Malric waiting for her, and of the life she had always known. Could she leave it all behind? Could she embrace a bond that felt both terrifying and exhilarating? A shadow rose before her, dark and shifting. It took the shape of her mother, stern and disappointed. "You must obey," the shadow said, its voice sharp and echoing. "You cannot abandon your duty. Marriage is your path. This stranger is a danger to you." Alara's chest tightened. Tears blurred her vision. I don't know," she whispered. Her heart ached with confusion. She wanted to honor her family, yet every instinct screamed that Kael was her true mate, the one she was meant to be with. Another shadow emerged, this one taller and more menacing. It was Lord Malric, smiling with arrogance and entitlement. "You belong to me, Alara," it said, its voice like cold steel. "Your life, your heart, your future, it is mine." Alara felt the pull of fear. But at the same time, the tether between her and Kael flared like a living thing. She closed her eyes, focusing on the warmth, the steady pulse of the bond. She imagined Kael's hand on hers, his voice steady and reassuring. Slowly, she took a deep breath. "I belong to no one but myself," she said firmly, though her voice wavered. "And to the one I am meant to be with." Thing. The shadows writhed and hissed, twisting with anger. But the bond held strong. A soft glow began to radiate from the runes in the stones, filling the hollow with light. Alara felt a surge of courage, as if the forest itself were supporting her. Kael stepped forward, emerging from the shadows as the last flicker of fear vanished. "Well done," he said, his voice calm but proud. "You have begun to understand. Fear is natural, but it must never control you. The bond will guide us, but only if you trust it fully." Alara's shoulders relaxed slightly, though adrenaline still coursed through her veins. I trust you," she said softly. "Even if I don't understand everything. I feel it, the bond. I feel you." Kael's stormy eyes softened. He reached for her hand, this time fully, and she did not pull away. The warmth was immediate, searing in a way that was both comforting and exhilarating. "Then we are ready for the next step," he said. "But it will not be easy. The world will fight us every step of the way." Their next challenge came sooner than expected. As they left the hollow, the forest seemed to twist around them, paths shifting and twisting. Strange creatures lurked in the shadows, eyes glowing with a predatory light. Kael moved with precision, leading her with practiced skill, his blade flashing when danger approached. "Alara, stay close," he commanded, as a pack of shadow wolves emerged, their growls echoing through the trees. Alara's heart raced. She had never fought before, yet she felt a strange courage rise within her. The bond pulsed with Kael's energy, giving her clarity and focus. She dodged and ran, guided by instinct and the tether that pulled her toward him. With Kael at her side, they faced the wolves together, moving in perfect coordination. The danger was real, but the thrill of facing it with him was intoxicating. Each strike, each movement, each glance shared in the heat of battle deepened their connection. Finally, the wolves retreated into the shadows, leaving the forest eerily quiet. Alara sank to her knees, exhausted but alive. Kael knelt beside her, brushing rain-soaked hair from her face. "You were remarkable," he said softly. Alara looked at him, breathing heavily. "Neither did I," Kael admitted with a faint smile. "But the bond makes us stronger. Together, we are unstoppable." They continued on, moving deeper into the forest. Along the way, Kael revealed more of his past. A life of exile, of battles fought and friends lost, of mistakes that had haunted him. Yet, in telling her, he showed vulnerability, and Alara felt her admiration and trust grow. She realized that Kael's strength was not only in his skill, but in his willingness to face his own past, just as she must face her own fears. As night fell once more, They reached a cliff overlooking the kingdom. The wind whipped around them, carrying the scent of rain and distant smoke. Ilara gazed out at the lands below, feeling both awe and a strange melancholy. She thought of her family, her former life, and the wedding she had been meant to attend. All of it seemed distant, almost unreal, compared to the reality of standing here with KL, her true mate. "Do you ever wonder," she asked quietly, "if the world will ever accept us?" Kale's gaze softened, but his jaw remained set with determination. "Perhaps not," he said, "but we do not need the world's approval. We need each other. That is enough." Ilara's heart swelled at his words. She had been so afraid, so unsure, yet now she understood something profound. Love, destiny, and courage were intertwined. The bond that connected them was stronger than fear, stronger than doubt, stronger than the expectations of a kingdom. And yet, as they stood there, a shadow passed over the land below a dark figure on horseback, watching them from a distance. The king had sent hunters, loyal to the old order, determined to force Ilara back to her wedding. Kale's eyes darkened. "They have found us," he murmured, "and they will not stop until they take you." Ilara felt a chill, but she did not flinch. The bond flared brightly, a promise and a warning. Whatever trials awaited, she knew she could face them with Kale by her side. The forest, the wolves, the shadows, they were all tests of courage, preparing them for the greater challenge ahead. As the wind howled around them, Kale placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "Rest for now," he said. "Tomorrow, the real journey begins." Ilara nodded, her heart racing. She felt fear, yes, but also hope, determination, and a love that defied reason. Destiny had claimed her, and she would not turn away. The night deepened, stars twinkling faintly through the clouds, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. The bond between them glowed like a living thread, unbreakable, even as unseen eyes plotted and waited. The first rays of dawn barely pierced the forest canopy, yet the sound of hooves and shouting reached Ilara and Kale long before the hunters appeared. The king's men had found them, their armor glinting in the morning light, swords drawn, and eyes filled with determination to enforce the old order. Ilara felt her chest tighten, but this time, fear did not dominate her thoughts. The bond between her and Kale pulsed fiercely, steadying her heart. "They are close," Kale murmured, tightening his grip on his sword. His stormy eyes swept over the clearing, calculating, alert. "We cannot outrun them. We must face them, and we must fight together." Ilara swallowed, the weight of choice pressing on her. She could no longer run from duty or destiny. The bond had claimed her, and she would stand beside Kale, not as a pawn, but as a force of her own making. Kyle moved first, stepping into the open and calling out, "Halt! This woman is claimed by destiny. None may force her into another's hand." A commander of the king's guard stepped forward, his expression stern. "By royal decree, Lady Ilara must return to the castle. She is to marry Lord Malric today." Ilara lifted her chin, the morning wind whipping her hair around her face. "I am no longer a possession," she said firmly, her voice carrying over the clearing. "I belong to no one but myself and to the one I am meant to be with." The soldiers hesitated, confused by her defiance, but they advanced anyway. Kale's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, the bond pulsing stronger with every step they took. It was a force beyond words, a tether that connected their hearts, minds, and spirits. Together, they faced the army of the king. The first clash came suddenly. A soldier lunged at Kale, sword raised. Kale moved with lightning speed, deflecting the blow, his blade glinting in the early sunlight. Ilara instinctively followed, moving with the rhythm of the bond, sidestepping, dodging, feeling a strength she did not know she had. "Stay close," Kale called. Trust the bond. Alara nodded, focusing on the warmth and pull of the tether. She dodged another strike and felt the bond guide her to safety. Fear and hesitation vanished, replaced by a clarity she had never known. Together, they were unstoppable. As the battle raged, Kale's voice cut through the chaos. Alara, listen to me. You are more than you think. The bond gives us strength, but your heart must lead. Alara closed her eyes briefly, letting the tether guide her. She felt Kale's presence, steady and strong, and a surge of courage filled her. She moved forward, confronting the soldiers not as a frightened noblewoman, but as a woman claimed by destiny, bound to the one she was meant to be with. The soldiers faltered under their determination and unity. Kale's skill, combined with Alara's newfound confidence, created a force the hunters had not anticipated. Step by step, they pushed the king's men back, their bond radiating a power that seemed almost magical. Finally, the commander raised his hands. Enough, he shouted. She will return to the castle. Unless... Kale stepped forward, his eyes blazing. Unless what? Unless the king himself comes to witness the truth, the commander said, hesitation in his voice. He alone can decide whether her claim is valid. Alara's heart sank. She knew the king would not easily accept what destiny had chosen. But Kale squeezed her hand, and she felt the tether flare like a beacon of light. She took a deep breath. Then we will face him, she said firmly. Together, they moved toward the castle, the forest giving way to stone walls and banners fluttering in the wind. Inside the grand hall, the king sat upon his throne, his expression a mixture of anger and disbelief. Lord Malric knelt before him, fuming at the turn of events. My daughter, the king began, his voice sharp. Why do you defy me? Why do you allow this stranger to claim you? Alara stepped forward, feeling Kyle at her side. The bond pulsed, steadying her nerves. Father, I am not defying you, she said. I am embracing what is true. I belong to the one I am meant to be with, by law older than any throne. I am claimed. The hall fell silent. Courtiers gasped, whispers spreading like wildfire. The king's eyes narrowed. Claimed? He repeated. By what authority? Kale stepped forward, his presence commanding and unyielding. By destiny, he said. By a bond that cannot be broken by law, fear, or threats. Lady Alara is my true mate, and our souls are bound. The court murmured, but the king's gaze remained cold. He rose slowly, his hands gripping the arms of the throne. Do you dare defy the crown? Alara met his eyes, feeling the tether tighten. She was no longer afraid. I do not defy the crown, she said calmly. I honor the truth of my heart. And that truth is with Kale. The king's face twisted with anger. But before he could speak, a subtle shimmer filled the hall. The runes of destiny, old and powerful, seemed to awaken, surrounding Kale and Alara with a radiant glow. The courtiers gasped, feeling the weight of a force beyond their understanding. The bond flared brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat, and the king's anger faltered. He could see it, feel it, an undeniable force that demanded respect. His authority, once absolute, was challenged not by rebellion, but by the immutable will of destiny. Kale moved closer to Alara, his hand brushing hers. It is done, he whispered. We cannot be denied. The king's voice faltered, his chest rising and falling with unspoken conflict. Finally, he sank back into his throne, the weight of realization heavy upon him. If what you claim is true, he said slowly, then the bond cannot be broken. It has chosen its path. Alara felt tears prick her eyes, not from fear, but from relief, triumph, and the overwhelming joy of embracing her destiny. She looked at KL, and in his eyes, she saw the same mixture of victory and reverence. They had faced fear, danger, and doubt, and now, they were free to be together. Lord Malric's face burned with humiliation and anger, but he said nothing. The courtiers whispered, some in awe, some in disbelief. Alara realized that the world might never fully understand, but it no longer mattered. She had chosen the path of truth, guided by the bond and the man she loved. KL took her hand fully, holding it as if it were the most precious treasure. "We are together," he said softly. "Nothing else matters." Alara smiled, her heart swelling with a mixture of love and relief. "Together," she echoed. The bond pulsed one final time, strong and steady, as if acknowledging the completion of a journey that had begun long before their lives. The air in the hall shimmered with a quiet magic, a blessing that surpassed words. They were claimed, and the world had no choice but to accept it. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden light over the castle, Kale and Alara stepped forward into the hall, hand in hand. They had faced destiny, danger, and doubt, and emerged stronger, united, and free. The kingdom, once rigid with rules and expectations, now stood witness to a force it could not control. Love, courage, and destiny had triumphed, and in that triumph, a new story began, one not of duty, but of choice, power, and the unbreakable bond between true mates. Alara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past lift from her shoulders. Kale's presence beside her was steady, strong, and unwavering. She had found her courage, embraced her destiny, and claimed the life she had been searching for, even before the wedding she had once thought inevitable. And as the castle doors opened to welcome them, the first breeze of a new beginning swept through the halls. The bond remained, unyielding and eternal, a promise that whatever trials might come, they would face them together.